Everybody, I wanted to pick up where I left off on a Facebook post the other day. I was demonstrating, had been commenting on one page about anvil usage, and I was giving some demonstrations of different ways it's used and everything. So I was working this piece of it started as a big thicker spall of some of this Arizona black shiny obsidian, and so I was showing some reducing methods, thinning methods on that. Well, then later on, I'm getting home and I'm really wanting to work with this pivot and fixed insert method, and so I picked it up and I started bifacing, and I was developing some tools specifically for thinning, and based upon my my use of my wood billets. So this was a very scaled down version of my wood billet, and I'm coming to find that this is even large for what's needed. And so, bam, I just started really producing some fantastic. I'll show you how that was done. I don't have any flakes in front of me right now to do this part, but you can just wet the end of it and then roll it in a little bit of dust from your debitage, and then you can insert it in here and work it around like this, and you'll feel it start to grab and bite and get fixed. Now with the wood, some woods, I'll get into a story sometime about making the long shafts for Lakota pipes that I was shown by the Cheyenne River when I was a kid, and a great story of the use of the pine beetle. At any rate, some woods like sumac and others, they'll expand, and I used to make small pipes and the antler little trail pipes, and I'd demonstrate to the kids at the school. I'd take the pieces of the sumac and the different pieces, and then it would wrap it with leather, and it was really nice little pipes. But they would come in three pieces: the end piece, which was antler, the pipe bowl at the top, and it was antler, and then the sumac piece. And I'd say, here, put it together. And they'd put it together, and it would fall apart, and it would fall apart, and it would fall apart. And then I'd turn my back, and I would wet the end, and I'd stick it in there real quick. In about a few seconds, it would set up like glue. And I'd go, here, pull this. And they'd pull back and forth, back and forth, back and forth, and it wouldn't come apart. It would finally break apart, and they'd be like, whoa, how you do that? I'd be doing these things, kind of like magic, this trick purse and all these other different things that I'd learned and had over the years. And my time at Gila River Indian community with the kids there and teaching them some of these old ways was pretty rewarding. And those are some of the memories that I have of that. Some of them I'm sure have as well. But at any rate, so you can do that, and this becomes a fixed device. It isn't a pivot. If I was to take this end and put it over on the other end, then it would be a pivot device. This, I'll show you here, take some of these tools out of my little bag here. This is a piece of wood, and this end would be a pivot end. If I turned it around to this end and insert it, now this becomes a fixed insert device, because it fixes in like this. Pivot you have to hold with your hand. So I'm going to just do a little bit of demonstrating here real quick. And this is, I call this the sausage tool, whatever name it used to have a long time ago. If it was, I don't know. Archaeological records, they call these punches. And you can certainly use it as a punch this way or this way. Interestingly enough, you look at some of those old punches, some of them don't have use on this end, but they do on this end. Some of them have use on both ends because, You can insert it in this end, pull it out when this end's used, flip it around, use it in this end in indirect percussion like I'm going to demonstrate. So I believe that one of these, you could have a session where you're sitting down, you're flint knapping, and you're using this end, which is going to have tool usage consistent of this. The tips, if you look at the old punches, most of the time, a lot of them are flattened on the top and then rounded along the side. Why? Because on the antler, unless it's axis or it's white-tailed deer or whatever, depending on the antler, it's going to be soft in the center, and so you're using the outside anyway. So after I take this, I can go across my big sandstone piece that I have and then around the edges. On your tool that you're creating like this hole, I'll give it examples, is again that we find in archaeology that I've seen have been ranging from 7/16 of an inch to a ½ inch. I'm going with 7/16 because as it wears, it will eventually probably expand a little bit more. As well, when you go with a bigger hole, now you're more risk of fracturing this, which we see a higher rate of breakage. I don't think it's to the excess that you're going through these like crazy. I mean, they were having them long enough that many of them are decorated with engravings and stuff, so they meant something to somebody. I go with a smaller hole because less likelihood of breakage when you're getting into bifacing. So I'm going to just demonstrate here on how you can use this particular. Again, what's great with this is that, oh my God, is that the tool is used in so many different ways. So we have here, take some leather, put it in my hand, okay, and you can put this in so many different positions, so many different methods of using, and I can go here like this, and then if you're doing thinning and you really need a bigger tool like this one, then you're going to have something that's going to have a little bit more of a whack to it. And I'm not going right on the head. You could do that for more of a direct percussion effect, even though technically I think they'd call it indirect percussion. But instead, I'm going back here like this. Now you can rest your bifaces in your tools here. I need to flip this around. You can rest them in the palm, as I've shown in the demonstrations, in the palm of your hand. And so you're really just kind of lifting up on this a little bit. So this, well, I call it a press. In many instances like this, you're not really pressing too hard. So the breakage that we're seeing in the record, I think, is more of repeated impact over a time, or harder, bigger